We now take you back to our discussion on the green hydrogen industry engagement, where the session, among others, assessed the socio-economic benefits of the industry in empowerment of youth and small and medium enterprises. Now, joining us in the studio is Mr. Joseph Mukendwa. He is the Head of Policy Planning and Strategy at the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program. A very good evening, sir, and just take us through the green hydrogen outlook.
Thank you, Jeanette. Part two. Let's see how it goes.
Yes.
But as I was saying, I think before we look at what is currently happening and what the future prospects hold, it's important just to take a step back and just acknowledge and appreciate the journey that we've walked in as far as green hydrogen is concerned. We have Vision 2030 that outlines our country's aspirations to become an industrialized nation and address some of the challenges that the country is facing as far as unemployment is concerned, which links to what you said around creating opportunities for the youth and MSMEs, as well as diversifying our economy such that we are not reliant only on the primary sector, that we can do a bit of manufacturing and also trying to close the inequality gap. So that's where we came from as far as Vision 2030 is concerned. We have various national development plans that highlight, aspirational targets and initiatives and strategies. NDP 5 specifically speaks about making sure that our industry is a bit more complex and ensuring that we add value to our natural resources, and by so doing we can create opportunities locally. And I think the one that most of the people will be familiar with is HPP2 under the economic advancement pillar. That is where green hydrogen is actually specifically mentioned as a potential for the growth, or as an engine of growth for Namibia. That was published in 2022, and in that, or rather after that, there was a green hydrogen and derivative strategy that was published in 2022. And in that strategy, it articulates the actions that we need to embark upon as a country if we want to acquire, or if we want to reach our aspirations to become this leader in green energy. And that strategy establishes the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program, where I sit. And we've developed a 3-year plan articulating what we are going to do. Essentially, we are there to catalyze, to create a conducive environment for green hydrogen projects to flourish in the country. And we certainly have a lot of them. There are about 6 that I can mention for you. We have currently High Iron Oshivela project, which I'll share a bit more of details later on. Clean Energy Namibia, Hyphen Hydrogen is one that people are aware of in the south. Envision, Hydrogen de France, and the Daures Green Hydrogen project. So quite a number of projects that have been established. And the sector has actually been able to garner or secure significant investment and commitments into this particular sector that have gone into building this new industry. So I'm quite excited about the prospects thereof. And the session today was really to try and unpack, what are the potential opportunities for our people. As I said at the beginning, ultimately we want to ensure that what we're doing links back to creating opportunities for our people and addressing some of the challenges that the country has been facing.
Now, talk to us about the prospects of job creation in the sector so far, and also how sustainable these job opportunities are.
Yeah, I think so far I can say it's quite promising in the industry. For an industry that is so young, just over 2 to 3 years, we have over 800 people that have been employed, sort of direct employment in the sector. But what I can also mention, as part of some of the projects that have been established, a lot of MSMEs have also been involved. I think in excess of 250 million has actually gone to MSMEs, providing services and or products to these projects that are being set up. So I think the opportunities are quite promising. What came out from today's conversation, the numbers, I know the populace has been eagerly asking the question around, what are the numbers? I think in our strategy, we have a 250,000 jobs potential that was articulated. So we took a step back and said, let's look at the assumptions that we utilized to come up with those figures. And we've gone back and we've re-looked at it, and we've come back with some figures around 132,000 direct, indirect, and induced jobs by 2030 across the entire value chain. I must say there are certain inputs that were considered, certain assumptions that were made in coming up with some of these figures. So the outcome could be higher, it could be lower, but I think it's at least a starting point in that we can start to have the conversations around what strategies we need to put in place to ensure that we can create these opportunities for our people. What I'm also hearing in your question was around sustainability. And I think when I hear sustainability, and I think when most people hear sustainability, they think about longevity, that the jobs must be there for as long as possible. And from what we've seen, the majority of what is coming out is that they are quite sustainable, or a significant portion is sustainable. But what I would also want to put to the table is that we need to align with sort of revised nomenclature when it comes to, when we refer to jobs. I know that the Ministry of Labor is actually working on an employment policy, and they've indicated that green hydrogen is one of the sectors that they're looking to as a catalyst, as a way to create opportunities for our people. And if you allow me, Jeanette, I just want to read to you what they define as sort of decent work, which I believe is something that we need to be looking towards. So not only that it should be sustainable, but it should be decent. So it refers to opportunities for work that is productive, safe, and delivers a meaningful income, security in the workplace, and social protection for families, better prospects for personal development and social integration, freedom of expression and association to organize and participate in decision-making, and equality of opportunity and treatment for all women and men. So it's beyond just, sustainability in terms of longevity, is ensuring that all of those benefits accrue. But at the core of this for me, and this is what also came out from the conversation, is we need to ensure that our people are actually capacitated to be able to take up these opportunities. As the program, together with our partners, we've implemented a Youth for Green Hydrogen scholarship, where we have awarded close to 200 scholarships to Namibians at different levels. Some of them are starting to come back and are actually going to be taking up positions within the sector. But we certainly need to do more to ensure that we can provide these opportunities for our people. And in that regard, the program is actually working with the World Bank to develop a comprehensive sort of skills development strategy and plan that clearly articulates what are the jobs that are going to be needed and what are the numbers that are going to be needed, so that we can then use that as a way to decide around the investments that need to be made to ensure that we create these opportunities for our people. So quite a lot that was discussed today, but I think it's a conversation that is going to be ever evolving and continuous. Yeah.
Let's look at the interest from foreign investors, those that you've secured, and also those negotiations that are still ongoing.
Yes, I would want to respond to your question twofold. I think at government to government level, we know that Namibia has a number of bilateral agreements with various countries, be it in the EU and elsewhere. We know the German government has actually pumped in quite a significant portion of grants to support this industry. We have partnerships with the Belgian government, just to name a few. But I think your question is more towards the projects themselves, in terms of what they've been able to secure in as far as investment is concerned. Unfortunately, I can't share too many details, especially when we talk about negotiations that are ongoing. But what I can say is I think the interest has been quite high. And I can use one example of High Iron. They are having a session tomorrow. I think they've opened it up to the public to go and witness the inauguration of their facility, where they'll be talking to us about who the partners are that they've brought on board, the investors that have come on board, and the prospects. And they're going to be showing us what they're actually producing. And for me, this is exciting because I think in a lot of people's minds, they think green hydrogen is 5 to 10 years from now. But essentially, this will be showing that, look, we're actually producing green hydrogen and/or its related derivatives now already. There's a market for it, and Namibia is actually doing that. So the interest has actually been quite good in as far as the projects are concerned, and we're expecting that to continue being the case.
Now, Joseph, what would you say to the critics who are of the opinion that green hydrogen will not be fully realized, looking at job creation numbers may be overly ambitious, looking at the environmental factors and the concerns around it? Talk to us about that.
Very loaded question. Certainly there would be naysayers. And allow me to quote a very popular and widely used confectionery-inspired adage that is, the proof is in the pudding, right? So I think most of the critics would want to see it happening before they can, say, okay, actually that makes sense. And I think the case of High Iron is but one example. And I actually invite the critics to, go to site and have a look and see what is actually happening. This is a facility that was, built by Namibians, and it's actually been run by Namibians as well. So the proof is in the pudding. Have a look at what is actually being achieved by some of these projects. But what I also want to say is, it's a new industry and we need to look at things from different perspectives. So I actually want to extend an invitation to the naysayers, to come and speak to us. Let's see, what are some of the concerns that you have? You mentioned environmental. As a program, we are working on developing a comprehensive strategic environmental and social assessment that will look at, this is specifically at least the first phase, for the Southern Corridor Development Initiative, that is, sort of your Karas and Hardap region, especially in the parks, to see how these programs can actually coexist with, still ensuring that we uphold biodiversity. But also, we know that there are other activities that are taking place within those areas. Mining has been taking place there for the longest of time, tourism and so forth. So we're actually doing quite a lot of research in that regard. And I invite the naysayers to come to the table, as opposed to standing on the other side and pointing fingers. Come and sit with us, and then let's, hear what your issues are or your concerns are, and then we find a way to actually navigate through them. Yeah.
Let's look at collaboration. How has the collaboration really been between the public and private sectors, looking at civil society, also the academia, as part of your efforts to really fully realize green hydrogen?
So what was clear from the beginning for us is that for us to fully realize the potential of green hydrogen, or even now green industrialization, it requires a multitude of stakeholders to participate in this. As you mentioned, private sector have their role, the public sector, academia, and so forth. So we are seeing the discussions are taking place, the platforms are being created where, the private sector as well as the public sector are aligning in terms of strategy and, the direction that we're moving as a country. But a practical example that I can give you from the project's perspective, at least one initiative that we have put on the table is the establishment of a national task force on education, skills, and research. And essentially what that task force is going to be looking at is this comprehensive skills development strategy and plan, the development and implementation thereof. As you can imagine, the private sector will be able to give us specifics around what are the types of jobs that they actually need and what are the quantities that they actually need. And then the public sector can respond. I mean, there was a story just now about, Khobabe's VTC. I mean, that's a technical vocational education and training center that falls under the ambit of the Namibia Training Authority. The Namibia Training Authority is part of that task force. We have the NQA, part of that task force. The Ministry of Higher Education is part of that task force. So I think that is a prime example of, partnerships being created, especially between academia, private sector and public sector driving in the same direction, especially when it comes to creating opportunities for our people in this new industry.
Now, talk to us, how would you describe Namibia's capability to handle the industry in terms of skills? I know you made mention of the VTCs, especially the skills in this industry, and also transferring those skills from the international experts.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we fare pretty well, but there's some work to be done, certainly. Research has been carried out around the type of skills that are going to be needed. What is coming out is that the majority of the skills or the jobs that are going to be available fall within your technician and artisan space. So if you look at the National Qualifications Framework, typically that would mean up to level 5, which is like a diploma. Currently, our education system, especially at TVET level, the majority of them go only up to level 3, for example. So there is a gap in terms of level 4, level 5. So that is a gap that we certainly need to fill. But when I look at what is coming out from the research, as I indicated, more than 60% of the jobs being at artisanal or even technician level, the base is already there. So what is coming out, we need skill sets such as welders, electricians, and the likes. Who is going to install and maintain the wind turbines, the solar panels that we're actually going to need to generate the electricity that we need for the production of green hydrogen? So I think the base skills are certainly there. We need to find a way and a mechanism to ensure that we can plug the gap at level 4 and level 5 so that our people can specialize. At higher levels, I think our universities are doing quite well. They've partnered with international organizations to ensure that they can bring in those expertise. And we've also, as part of the scholarships that we allocated and awarded, have sent quite a number of students outside of the country to go and learn from the experts. So we are employing different aspects as well.
Our time is so limited. Maybe just briefly talk to us about the local business community, especially those who want to benefit. Just briefly, a few seconds.
Yeah, no, I think, be innovative. I like the clip and what Mr. Mayor mentioned from SME Compete. I think you need to put yourself out there as an MSME. Do your research, understand the sector, engage. Look for partnerships locally and also internationally. As a program, we are ideating and are looking to develop a comprehensive enterprise and supply development framework whereby we can see how we can assist some of these MSMEs, particularly in the green hydrogen space. I know that one of the projects, Hyphen, is actually doing this now already. They are reaching out to understand who are the players, especially at MSME level, to understand their capacities. And then on the back of that, work with us to develop this framework. So I implore all of the MSMEs that are listening and watching that they should engage the HIFEN program and actually do their research and start preparing themselves for the opportunities that are to come.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me.
Well, time now we take a look at the economic indicators. Stay tuned.